Welcome inside the Broncos podcast studio for an edition of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. Wildcard weekend is almost over. There's one more game left that will determine who the Patriots will be playing. But for the Broncos, after this weekend's game, it has been established they will be playing the Buffalo Bills, a rematch from last year's playoffs. The date is set and the opponent is set, but the times are still TBD, waiting for this Monday night game.
Yeah, we'll know when the Broncos are playing and which network they're playing on after Monday night's game between the Steelers and the Texans. But we do know who the Broncos are playing, the Buffalo Bills, like you said, a rematch of last year's game. And it's kind of a full circle moment, Elisa. Last year, it was kind of this young upstart team in the Denver Broncos who got their first playoff experience. This year, it's the number one seeded Broncos who get to play this game at home, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's another matchup against Josh Allen, last year's MVP. Certainly, when you look at the AFC playoff field, the most established of all the quarterbacks, a really impressive, dangerous player who will certainly be a challenge for the Denver Broncos. But listen, if you're going to make a run to Super Bowl 60 and you're going to win a world championship, you're going to have to play the best and you're going to have to beat the best. And as far as the quarterback position goes, it doesn't get much better than Josh Allen. This is a guy that, he can make every throw. He's obviously super mobile and a big, strong player. So if you're a Broncos fan, why not, play a team like the Buffalo Bills that last year the Broncos fall 31-7, and you hope that they're able to, in a year, show their progress and get a win, but it's going to be a challenge, and I think it's exciting. This is what you want the postseason to be. You want it to be these big games, and certainly the Broncos will get one this Saturday.
Yeah, that was my next question to you. What was your initial reaction? Because for me, after that Bills-Jaguars game, obviously you see why Josh Allen is so good. I mean, not only you have that comeback win on the road, but the defense really come up with some key turnovers. It was a huge win for them, specifically against the Jags, snapping, I believe, like an 8-game winning streak that the Jags had on them in terms of playoff stuff. So it's one of those matchups that, as you mentioned, is what you want to see. It's a good measuring stick as well, and we talked about that as the Broncos go through their growing pains. Now you're on the other side, hopefully, of that and what you learned. And yes, you got a taste of the playoffs last year, but it was one thing that everyone talked about following that loss last year. It was like, we got a good taste, and we realized like playoff games are different. They move faster. They are more intense or more physical. Every inch, every centimeter on the field matters. And now you're going to have a chance to play this team again and see what you have. But I think the bigger part is this is exactly what head coach Sean Payton had been talking about when he mentioned after that loss, saying we have to figure out how to play this game at home. How do we play this kind of matchup? Whether it was exactly against the Bills or someone else, but how do we play this type of matchup at home? And they got just that. This is exactly what you want, is exactly what you work for, the number one seed, and you're welcoming a tough Bills team, but you're welcoming them into a tough environment that you have proven able to protect, being 8-1 during the regular season.
Yeah, I think who doesn't love a good sequel, right? And so this is the sequel of last year, and it's kind of, again, last year was the first time, like you said, a lot of these guys were experiencing the postseason. Bo Nix's first playoff start. I mean, it was Garrett Bowles, Cortland Sutton, all these guys. It was their first playoff start. You understand what that's all about, and then you add reinforcements like Talanoa Hufanga, like Dre Greenlaw, who Sean Payton kind of alluded to Friday, hoping he'll be back for this divisional round game in the postseason. You add Evan Ingram, who has made big plays in spots, and then, of course, a draft class as well. So you're a different team than you were a year ago, but also I think the core of the team, which is similar in some ways, you're more experienced. And so that matters, and that you'll know what this moment is like. You'll be ready for this moment. And yeah, you're right. To get it at home is really important. And it's not that road teams cannot win in the postseason, but certainly much more difficult. To have that home field advantage is a significant edge. I was there last year. I stood on the field before the game. I stood on the field in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. Like, you could feel the excitement and the electricity, and it felt like the whole world is against you, right? And now you get to host that, and you get to have that on your side, and you get to have 76,000 fans screaming as Josh Allen's in the huddle, screaming as they're at the line of scrimmage, and that can be a benefit. That can be a real bonus. And so when Sean Payton said that, and we've talked about this a bunch now, in that small press conference room in Buffalo, hey, we've got to play these games at home. For them to be able to do that in 1 year, and then not only to do it, but just to have it work out that they happen to be playing the exact same team, it's kind of like it feels a little bit destined, right? And that it's like destined to happen, and that this was kind of how it was supposed to play out. So it will be a difficult game. It'll be a challenging game, but I also think this team is a different team than it was a year ago. And also, you're probably catching the Bills. Not that there's ever a great time to catch them. They're a really talented team. We saw them go into New England and win that football game just a few weeks ago. But it is a team that just played a really physical game against the Jaguars. They win with a game-winning touchdown in the final minutes. But they're beat up. They lost a starting safety in Jordan Poyer. Gabe Davis, a receiver, goes out. They were already without Ty Johnson, who, as we know, made a terrific catch last year in the playoff game that really swung the game. Terrell Bernard did not play, starting linebacker. And so they're a little bit banged up. Obviously, it's a short week with the Broncos playing on Saturday. So we'll see if that's an edge there for Denver.
Yeah, this team is, as you mentioned, it makes for a good storyline. It makes for that good full circle moment and those things like that. And I think this team is just ready. They're ready to get back on the field. And you kind of get a sense of that when some players and head coach Sean Payton talked to the media on Friday. I mean, they all spoke about the importance of executing in the red zone. They're very aware of the key parts that they need to work on as they go into this week, and making sure you're turning field goals into touchdowns, especially when you're going against a player like Josh Allen and the offensive power that he's able to produce. But I think for me, everything you just said ties back into what head coach Sean Payton said about the benefit of having experience in the locker room of guys that have been there, more guys that have been there, more guys like the Talanoa Hufangas and the Dre Greenlaws that have been to Super Bowls, that have gone through the playoff push, even as a lower seed and have gone to the Super Bowl. And so I think having those guys in the locker room and having them be your anchor points for the younger guys coming in, or the guys that are barely going to be in this for the second year in a row, I think is huge, especially when you're going against a tough opponent, but as you mentioned, at home.
Yeah, they have the experience, like we're saying, and Mike McGlinchey mentioned that you don't know when you're going to be back, and you don't know how often you're going to have the number one seed. Sean Payton said they're not like car wash coupons; they're hard to get. And so the Broncos, this is an opportunity to take advantage, right, and for them to make a playoff moment. And every run is defined by some sort of big win, and this is a chance to get that against a quarterback like Josh Allen. Against a team like the Buffalo Bills that obviously has had postseason success, and they haven't made a Super Bowl, but they've been in AFC Championship game. Like they've been where you want to be, and that matters. That you get that opportunity at home. Obviously, the Broncos are coming off the bye week. They get this Bills team instead of the Chargers, who fell to the Patriots, and that. When the Bills beat the Jags, it kind of made it so that it didn't really matter what happens tonight in this Steelers-Texans game. Like you said, the winner of that will play New England. But, I think we'll preview the game more kind of as we go along this week. But I think a couple things immediately stand out to me. One is like you mentioned, the red zone and being better there. Those 4-point plays, as Sean Payton calls them, do you get a touchdown or do you get a field goal? The Broncos need to succeed in the red zone and have the edge there offensively, and then defensively, can you keep the Bills to field goals? And then that kind of leans into the turnover battle. We know how much Sean Payton has emphasized that. The Bills don't turn it over a whole lot, and that's something that we talked about a lot going into that postseason game last year was they don't give the ball away. And so in this game, can you get, even if you can get one, can you get two? I think back to that game in Buffalo on Monday Night Football. That was a game where the Broncos got several turnovers. I believe they had 3 takeaways in that game. But it's also important offensively that you don't turn the ball over, because if it is even if you finish even or +1 in the turnover battle, it feels like a game where you can't be, -1, -2. So that's important. And you want guys to play to their ability, right? Like last year you saw some drops, and I think that it wasn't necessarily the Broncos' best game, and some of that could be attributed to, hey, it's your first postseason game. You're getting used to it. You're figuring out what this moment is like. And now you have a chance to go out there and prove it again. And then I think the other thing that we'll be watching is the run game, and that if there is maybe an area you can exploit on Buffalo's defense, it's on the ground. We saw Jacksonville have some success with that, even though maybe they got away from it a little bit in the second half. But can R.J. Harvey, can Jaleel McLaughlin, we don't know the status right now of J.K. Dobbins. Sean Payton said on Friday that he's getting closer, but he didn't put him in that group of guys who can maybe be ready this week. So we'll see as the week goes on what that looks like. But I also want to, I know this is it's an exciting matchup, but when you face an MVP quarterback, there's like a little bit of nervousness, and certainly
it's normal, guys. Yeah. It's normal to have that fear.
But I think it's important to remember, you can look at the final score last year and be like, oh, they lost 31-7. This was a 24-point loss, and is home field advantage really going to change that? It was a close game late in the third quarter. The Broncos were only trailing 13-7 with about 3 minutes left in the third quarter. They have that fourth down. Josh Allen makes that terrific play where he scrambles, throws it to Ty Johnson, who catches it in the back of the end zone. That was kind of the moment where it got away from the Broncos a little bit. But if you get a stop there, you're down 6 points at the end of the third quarter with the ball. So while the Bills did go on a little bit of a run late, it was maybe closer than the score indicated. And so if you're the Broncos, I think you should have every reason to believe that, you were in that game last year, and now you have another year of growth. You have another year of coming together as a team. You added some new pieces, and you get to host this game on a short week against the Buffalo Bills. I think the Broncos have every opportunity to win this game and get their first playoff win in a decade and move forward to the AFC Championship game.
Head coach Sean Payton said it. He said, we've got to be sharper. We get these next few games here. We're going to see good teams that can score. These games are going to come down to 2 minutes. And I want those to be competitive. And I really want to work on our red zone and our defense. And you look at the scores from around the league this week, and Rams-Panthers that everyone thought was potentially going to be a more lopsided game, 34-31. Packers and the Cardiac Bears, 31-27. Aside from the Chargers and Patriots game, which even then the Chargers had a few moments in the game going on fourth down, a crucial interception that they could have made that game closer. 49ers, Eagles, a huge win for the Niners there, 23-19, 27-24. I mean, by a margin, and we saw it in the Packers game. A missed field goal here, a missed extra point here adds up to maybe in the regular season wouldn't have came back and haunted you as much. But in the playoffs, you have to take what you can get. And, we saw teams go for it a lot on fourth down across the league. Some were successful, some were not. And so you see that aggressiveness continue to pick up. And it's only going to intensify the deeper you go into the playoffs. And I think that's why everyone in the room, including the players and obviously the head coach, were talking about the importance of harping on all the details 10 times more than they normally already do, because it's a game of inches. It's a game of any given Sunday. We've seen crazy things happen in Wild Card Weekend. We've seen, these really close games in the final 2 minutes. It really comes down to, can your defense hold? Can you make a play? Can you make a stop? Can you prevent a penalty from putting this team in field goal range? I mean, everything is just overemphasized, and I think for this Broncos team, they understand that and understand it's a new season, new teams, and last year's game shouldn't really harp on it too much because, as you mentioned, this team has grown, and Bo Nix has had a spectacular season in terms of what he's been able to do and what he's been able to show, especially when it comes to those late game drives. Yeah,
and like you said, the late game drives are everything in the postseason. And going into that Niners game, which the Niners ended up winning, the first 3 wild card games, the team that was winning at the 2-minute warning lost. And so that speaks to
– yeah. Let's say that again for the people, just in case.
Rams, Panthers, Packers, Bears, Bills, Jags. The team that was winning at the 2-minute warning lost the football game. And that speaks to you're never safe in these postseason games. It comes down to the very end. And then on Sunday, you had 11 consecutive quarters, starting with Bills, Jags, 49ers, Eagles, and then the first 3 quarters of Chargers, Patriots, where – those games were one score for those first 11 quarters. Only in the fourth quarter of the Chargers game when they scored a touchdown did it become a 2-possession game. So these games are close. And again, we heard Sean Payton mention red zone, third down, 2 minute, right? And when you watch those games on Sunday, that's exactly what you saw. So those will be important. And we'll have a lot more coverage of this game as we get rolling here and finally have a postseason opponent to talk about after this bye week. But yeah, this is going to be as exciting of a game as I can remember, and certainly you're glad you get it at home. And like Sean Payton said a little more than a year ago at this point, got to get these games at home. They found a way to do it, and now they'll have a chance to try to take down the Buffalo Bills.
Well, Broncos country, remember, we will find out the timing and the network that the game will be on following the Monday night game against the Houston Texans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be really exciting to see what time the Broncos will play. Whether it's day or night, I know Broncos country will be ready. So, again, we'll get you all ready to go with a new episode of Altitude Advantage once all the details are tacked on. But make sure you guys stay tuned on denverbroncos.com for all the latest. Check in with our socials. We have a really good season recap video that just dropped from one of our editors. I think you guys might have seen it. Make sure you guys check it out if you guys didn't, because the Broncos will continue to climb higher, and we will continue to get you ready here on Altitude Advantage.